If you're planning to upload new content to Adobe Stock, you'll want to see some new data I just pulled together. I just did an analysis of image and video uploads to Adobe, both AI generated and non-AI, and there are some opportunities that I think could help you stand out. More on that in just a moment. First, I'm going to share my own Adobe Stock earnings, comparing to last month and to last year, to show you the trends that I'm seeing right now. And for July, it was a mixed bag. First, let's look at my Adobe earnings comparing June to July of 2024. In June this year, I earned $1,595 at Adobe, and in July, my total rose a bit to $1,675, which is an increase of 5%. Now, July did have 31 days versus 30 days in June, so that one extra day, which happened to be a weekday and not a weekend, where sales are typically lower, could be the reason I saw a slight increase. But given that in my 16 years of Microstock, I've usually seen July have slightly lower earnings than June, I'm happy to see this 5% increase. Next, let's look at my year-over-year Adobe Stock earnings, and this news is not so good. In July 2023, I earned $1,954. Jumping ahead to July of 2024, I earned $1,675, which is about a 14% decrease. I'm really not happy to see this because I uploaded around 2,500 new images and videos in the past year, which grew my portfolio by about 8%. Based on what I'm reading at online forums like Microstockgroup.com, I'm not alone in seeing a decrease, and that makes it all the more important to make sure I'm picking topics that are hot sellers and titling and keywording those files in ways that will help buyers find them. At the end of this video, I'll share more information on how I do this, so be sure to stick around till the end. Now let's take a look at Shutterstock. If you saw my last video, I suggested that there may be reason to be hopeful that the slide we've all been seeing for the past few years might finally be letting up at Shutterstock. But did July give me reason to keep that hope alive? I'll let the numbers tell the story. At Shutterstock, my June to July earnings increased by 7%. So yes, I am feeling like there maybe is some hope that we've seen the bottom at Shutterstock and things could finally pick up again. Like I mentioned a moment ago, July did have one extra day compared to June, but I don't think that alone could account for a 7% increase for me. So is this a sign of better things to come? August is normally a pretty quiet month for earnings across Microstock, so I would want to see at least a flat number for the month of August to keep this hope alive. And then there's Storyblocks. Surprisingly, I also saw a small increase from June to July there, with my earnings rising by about 4% to just under $1,200. It's now been nearly a year that my Storyblocks earnings have hovered right around the $1,200 mark after a few years of earnings being much, much higher. There is a whole story there that perhaps I'll dive into in a future video. As for what topics or themes performed well for me in July, there's really no change from the last few months, so if you'd like to see my top 10 list, you can check it out in my June earnings video, and it's roughly the same for the month of July. And if you'd like to see my top 100 hot sellers list, that's available in my course, which I've linked in the notes below. Now let's get to the data that I teased earlier. I intend to start sharing a monthly data overview for Adobe Stock with some points that I find interesting, and I'll be able to share numbers for the most recent month compared to prior months to show you what the trends are, some of which can help you spot some opportunities to make more money with future uploads. Let's start with a baseline. As of right now in early August, there are about 445.5 million images in Adobe Stock's portfolio. Now those are all images including photos, illustrations, 3D renders, and of course generative AI. But AI is the thing that's shaking up the market, so let's dive into that and look at the AI trends. As of August, Adobe had just over 106 million generative AI images, and that's up from 101 million about a month ago, which amounts to an increase of about 4.5%. Of course, those are AI images approved in the last month, not necessarily uploaded. I'm still hearing that review wait times are pretty long for a lot of contributors, so the real number of AI uploads per month could be driving quite a bigger increase than 4.5%. As of right now, AI images account for 23.3%, or nearly 1/4 of all images on Adobe Stock, and considering that AI submissions really took off just about 1 year ago, it's astonishing to see how quickly AI has earned such a dominant place in Adobe's overall portfolio. Next, I think it's interesting to look at something I believe poses a big opportunity for you if you're generating new content right now. If you break those 106 million AI images down by orientation, you see that horizontal images account for about 78% of all AI images. Square images are about 14% and panoramic are 7%. The big opportunity, as I see it, is in vertical images. These account for only about 8% of all AI images, which means your competition for images that are created specifically in vertical orientation is much lower, which could equate to more earnings for you. Which means your competition for images that are created specifically in vertical orientation is much lower, and that could equate to much more earnings potential for you. More and more communication from web use to email and other digital formats is happening on phones and other mobile devices. So if you can create generative AI images, or any other types of images for that matter, in a vertical orientation, you could really stand out. Now, video is another area that's going to hold huge potential for those willing and able to explore AI video submissions to Adobe Stock. As of right now, Adobe has about 19.2 million videos overall, and AI videos just account for about 784,000, or 4.1% of the total. Compare that number to the 23.3% share that AI images have within the Adobe total, and you can get a glimpse of what the future of video will be. If you ever plan to get into AI video, now is the time to establish a foothold before your competition does. Of course, the options to create AI video and the steps and processing involved are much more demanding than with AI images, but all that could change once the Sora platform is available for public use. And we don't yet know how much it will cost to use Sora to create stock quality videos, which of course will be a huge factor. One other thing that's worth noting in the Adobe Stock video data is that there are currently about 14.3 million videos available in 4K format out of the 19.2 million total videos. That means about 75% of Adobe's video stock is in 4K. So if you're submitting video right now at Adobe and not submitting in 4K, you're probably going to have a hard time convincing customers to choose your video over the many more alternate choices that are out there in a higher resolution. Now, earlier I mentioned that I'd share some tips on making sure customers will be able to find your newest images after you upload them. A big part of helping customers find your work in an ocean of competition is keywording. Here's some information I hope is helpful, and for more tips like this, you can find my full course through the link below. Keywording your images and videos is vitally important to make sure potential buyers can find your work. You can have the greatest content available, but if you don't keyword it correctly, no one will find it. But if done correctly, your work can leapfrog over your competition to jump out at customers when they're ready to buy. I want to help you get the highest exposure possible, so let's dig in. Before we begin, our keywording golden rule is going to be essential, so let's cover it now. Think like a customer when keywording. Write words and phrases that your customer is likely to use when searching, and put it at the top of your list. When keywording, it's more important than ever to think like a customer. Picture who might buy your latest image or video. What need are you meeting? What are the first words a customer is thinking of when coming to look for the perfect content? Those should be the very first words you start with when building your list. Adobe Stock prioritizes your first 10 keywords, giving your content a boost in search results if the terms your potential buyer uses in a search are included in your first 10 keywords. So make sure your most important terms are right up front. And it's important to have a process to build your list of words that helps you track your number of keywords and makes them easily searchable for future reference. Here's a golden hack to let you do just that. Use a spreadsheet to build your keyword list. An Excel or Google Sheets formula can track your keyword count to help you optimize your list. Most of the agencies allow up to 50 keywords, with Adobe Stock allowing up to 49. So here's how to set up a spreadsheet that will show you how many words you're typing. Enter this formula in a cell. If you don't want to write this down, you can always copy it out of the PDF of the course book and paste it in. I've written this code so that it's totaling the words in column C, so put the formula in column B or D, it doesn't matter. Now begin entering some words separated by commas in column C within the same row that you pasted the formula. One thing to keep in mind is that a phrase of 2 or more words will count as multiple words here, but Adobe will count a phrase as a single word. So if you have multiple of these, you could go over 49 in your count in the spreadsheet, but Adobe may allow them because they're counting by the phrase and not the word. But this is still a good way to track the general total. Let's look at the photo we used in the titling module. Picture yourself as the potential buyer of this image. What terms might you use in your search if you were looking for an image just like this one? A good place to start is with the title itself. Black African-American businesswoman, young, shaking hands, job interview, meeting, closing deal, conference room. Okay, that's a great start, and our spreadsheet is telling us we're at 15 words. So we know we can include up to 34 more. But we don't necessarily want to use 34, especially if we're filling in words just to max out the list. That's keyword spamming, and it can get you into trouble at the agencies. You should only use words that are relevant to the image or video, and words that a buyer might conceivably use to find your content. Let's continue with this image. We use the words shaking hands, but someone might type handshake as one word, so let's add that. We didn't include man yet, so let's add that. What are some other terms related to job interview? Candidate, hire, open, position, recruit, recruitment. Let's add those. And what if the buyer isn't looking for a job interview photo, but a business meeting in which a salesperson closes a deal after a presentation or proposal? Let's add sell, sales, presentation, proposal, opportunity, agreement. We're now up to 27 terms. And remember that we included diversity-related terms in the title. Since diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging are high commercial value themes that are represented in the photo, let's include them. They are also known by the acronyms DEI and DEIB, so we'll add those as well. That's a good list, and you could stop there, but we might be overlooking some obvious choices that a buyer might use. Here are a few ideas to help us round out our list.